The Congressman, Devin Nunes, ranking member, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, is joining us today. Congressman Nunes, thank you for being here.
Well, John, it's an honor to be with you and great to be on your podcast. Thank you for having me.
Well, we've heard a lot in the last week about this week maybe being one of the most important in the unraveling of the Russia collusion narrative, which you played such a big, important role on. You were, if we go back to 2018, it is clear now that the report you wrote at that time had it just right, and the Democrats' attacks on it were unwarranted. But this week, I think we take it even beyond where you were with the body of evidence you had in 2018. Tell me what you're hearing about the declassification that might be coming down from DNI John Ratcliffe.
Well, it's probably best if I take your audience back to the original Ratcliffe letter that came out. That was new information for us. It wasn't that it was new information in terms of a concept that we weren't aware of, and it was basically our working theory that the Clinton campaign had devised these sick fantasies to cover up for her 33,000 emails that she deleted, and she probably thought that the Russians or some nefarious actor had those and could dump them, and most likely there was probably a lot of damaging information in those emails to take people back. And if you remember, Jason Chaffetz, who at the time was the chairman of our oversight committee, I mean, he had a whole team of investigators trying to find those emails. So we've had the entire time, when you go back and look at the body of evidence, and when I say body of evidence that we had, it was all circumstantial evidence, but it was where the Clinton campaign would clearly be communicating with the mainstream media throughout 2016, and they continued to have these stories about Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia. Then fast forward to the fall of 16, and serious criminal leaks leak out about how the FBI had opened an investigation into Trump, and the famous October 31st, I call it the Halloween story, comes out. Clearly, that was a massive leaks of classified information, and I think what it was is I think there were dirty cops at the FBI and DOJ who were trying to run as far away as they could from the FISA warrant that they got on Carter Page. So this has been our working theory for a long time because of the circumstantial evidence that we had, just built up. And I have to give credit to you, John, and a lot of the reporters, but especially Lee Smith, who located what were called the proto dossiers. The proto dossiers are key because everyone knows about the Steele dossiers because those are the ones that Comey briefed the Congress on. It leaked to BuzzFeed, but nobody had ever seen the proto dossiers. And clearly with the proto dossiers, they were being spread by Fusion GPS. They essentially mirrored what the Steele dossiers were. So it becomes clear that Steele's not the author of these dossiers. They were trying to tie Trump to these nefarious Russian figures with these proto dossiers. So we knew that was the case. We knew this is what the Clinton campaign was playing an October surprise, dirty trick, tie Trump, whatever we're doing, which is playing games with Russians, like what Hunter Biden was doing, getting $3.5 million from a Russian oligarch in Moscow. So accused Trump of doing the same thing. That's what they did. It's the old left-wing playbook. So now when Ratcliffe put that information out, at first it was dismissed by the mainstream media as being, this is old news. The Senate looked into it, and it's possible Russian disinformation. Well, first of all, we know because we had a whole investigative team going through that intelligence community assessment for nearly 2 years. So, we really, and in our report, we assessed that there were definitely tradecraft problems. So this is the intelligence community assessment that was done right after the election, where they decided to blame the Trump campaign. The Russians were actually trying to help the Trump campaign. That's essentially what they did. Then they did a whole assessment, which I call Obama's dossier, kind of nicknamed after the Steele dossier, where they could use intelligence to bolster their political narrative.
Right.
Well, we essentially said, wait, the tradecraft is wrong here. There was clear evidence of that. Well, now what we know is there was actually underlying documents, a bunch of them, that we clearly should have seen, because after you see these documents, you sit there and go, how on earth did the FBI have an investigation going into Trump knowing all this information? If anything, they should have been investigating Clinton campaign and the Democrats. And it's just that simple. There's so many documents. There's so much information that's out there. The American people deserve to know about it. And it infuriates me that it's taken this long to find what truly are the smoking guns. It's now impossible. And that's why you saw Comey last week with the Senate Judiciary Committee, where he has, massive amnesia. I mean, I think the guy doesn't remember anything about all of this that happened. And clearly he would have known, Peter Strzok would have known, all these guys knew, all these guys that were involved in this campaign. So it clearly shows that there was I've always said, John, and I'll finish up and pass it back to you on this. I've always said the only unanswered question that we really have through all of this is, at what point did the dirty cops at the DOJ and FBI begin to work directly with the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign? That's truly the only thing that we don't know. They were on parallel tracks. Was it a nod and a wink, or was there a deep throat that was passing information back and forth? Or were they truly just totally aligned? Because I think that's what it really was. They were totally aligned. You had the Cambridge Club in the UK. Clearly, they're tied to Steele. They're tied to Downer. They're tied to all of these cats at the Defense Department and the State Department and everywhere else. But that's truly the only remaining question for Durham to get to the bottom of. When did these guys start working together? Because clearly they were working together. And I expect Durham and these other U.S. attorneys to prosecute these dirty bastards. Plain and simple.
Yeah, this is no doubt that this was a political dirty trick carried out under the color of law, and it's extraordinary that it's taken this long to unravel. Now, I want to make sure I understood something. When you recently saw this underlying evidence that supports what John Ratcliffe disclosed last week, the bombshell last week, I want to make sure I understand. You did not see this evidence in 2018. You didn't have the benefit of seeing this evidence in 2018. Did I understand you correctly on that?
That's correct. And look, all you have to do is when the mainstream media writes a story, it's pretty easy. You just have to take the opposite. So what did they say? They said, the Senate, the great Senate guys, bipartisan, they really looked at this. No, they didn't look at this. This is a joke. They were hardly there. We know because, we were there. Our team was there the whole time. They hardly saw these Senate cats. Okay. So the Senate committee, that's an embarrassment. It should go down in history as one of the most embarrassing Senate investigations of all time. And now I'm not saying that about Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson and the work that they've done, because clearly they did tremendous work. They were actually onto this, and they didn't have. Remember, they had the problem. Chuck Grassley, as chairman of Judiciary last Congress, he didn't have all this underlying information. His guys did a great job, and I give them credit. But clearly,
the Senate Intelligence Committee is what you're concerned about, right?
Yeah, clearly the Senate Intelligence Committee, they weren't doing anything. So when the press comes out and says, the bipartisan Senate Committee, well, bipartisan means partisan, left-wing cover-up is what that means. And so right away. And then they said Russian disinformation. Well, immediately, John Ratcliffe came out and said, this is definitely not Russian disinformation. So the fact that they would be covering it shows you just how damaging this is. Like I said, they're the smoking guns. They're the smoking guns. Our intelligence community clearly knew what the Clinton campaign was up to, and they should have done something about it. And they did nothing. And they kept this investigation into Trump and the Republicans ongoing. And I didn't see this information until last week. It's something, like I said, we knew. It's no surprise, but we didn't have the smoking gun. That's how I can describe it.
Does that concern you that the CIA felt strong enough in the summer and fall of 2016 to make a referral to the FBI that, hey, there's something going on here. The Clinton campaign might be concocting a Russia collusion story to take care of some of Hillary Clinton's liabilities or hide them or disguise them. You get to 2018, Gina Haspel's the CIA director, and something this important, a referral to the FBI, a Russian intercept that suggests that something untoward was going on in the Clinton campaign. It never gets to the preeminent House Intelligence Committee. Do you feel like it was part of a cover-up? Why do you think you didn't get it?
Well, I'm not going to, until this information's out, John, it's hard for me to confirm anything that I'm not going to confirm anything that you just said there, because until Director Ratcliffe speaks and does a declassification, but I can just say you broadly, the information that was that the intelligence community had clearly was information that we should have had. And because we didn't have it, it's clear that there was a deliberate cover-up. There's been a cover-up of our intelligence. We did an assessment. That's been covered up. We did an investigative referral back to the CIA and the DNI IG back when I was chairman. It looks like that got swept under the rug, and now we know why. We know why because we brought up what we had evidence of was a tradecraft problem. We said clearly this is a tradecraft problem, a massive tradecraft problem. Little did we know that they were right below where we were. There were probably, what I'm guessing, dozens and dozens of intelligence products that would be completely blow up this entire narrative. And had we received all this, this should have been under our original subpoena.
Absolutely.
Back in February, March of 2017. All these documents should have been immediately turned over. And I'm a little bit disappointed, and I don't know, maybe they kept it so close held that there was nobody. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't receive any whistleblowers that would have come in and said, wait a second, because the amount of evidence is overwhelming, John. That's the problem with this. It's just so overwhelming. What's in DNI Ratcliffe's letter is just a quick synopsis, an assessment of what happened. So everything underneath that was clearly there was a mountain of evidence that the intelligence community knew about. And they're supposed to speak truth to power. What it appears like is that the Democratic National Committee and the Clintons and Obamas, they clearly own the IC agencies in this country, and that's what happens when a country falls apart. I mean, that's what happens in third world countries, and I don't say that lightly, but I mean there has to be an absolute cleanup of these intelligence agencies. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, DC's got to be cleaned out. All these senior officials have to be to be let go. It's really, really bad that this would stay hidden for so long, and they knew about it, and then they continue to try to hide this.
Right.
And and like I said, this is overwhelming evidence, and I don't know, and I don't say this because look, I've been one of the. I've been a hawk on Russia, on China for so long, and I understand the importance of having a robust intelligence capability, but not if that intelligence capability is going to be used by one political party over the other. And that's the problem here, is that the DC apparatus has become totally partisan. I mean, they're all in on it. You only have to look as far as even the fake whistleblowers that continue to come up. All this crap has got to end. I mean, we jump from whistleblower to whistleblower. It's Ukraine, then it's now it's Homeland Security. Before that, it's Trump, Russia. When the reality is the only people that were colluding with Russia and Ukraine and China were the Bidens, which you did. We know that the State Department, the story you broke today, they were clearly knee deep in Burisma and all of these issues that we knew circumstantially, but now, like you broke today, there's new documents coming out, new emails that don't you think we should have had those emails? And here I'm asking you the question. Right. Don't you think we should have had the emails that you broke today when they were impeaching the President of the United States of America?
Yeah, it's extraordinary. There's one line in those documents that really jump out at me, Congressman. I just wanted to ask you about it. So George Kent writes why they're monitoring 13 Americans. I'm among them: Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Lou Dobbs, and Fox News. They're among the people. They're monitoring their social media. They're eventually told that monitoring is illegal. You can't do it. It violates federal law. You can't target Americans at the State Department. But before they're told it's illegal, George Kent writes one of the reasons why they want to monitor these social media accounts. And he says because the story about Joe Biden and Burisma and his son might be the, quote, mother lode that would affect the November 2020 election. When you hear a State Department official who's supposed to be a career person, an apolitical person, worrying that they need to in some way stop a story about Joe Biden because it could hurt his November 2020 chances, what does that say to you about this State Department, CIA, FBI infrastructure that's been involved in all these scandals?
Well, look, I think it's the icing on the cake of what the riff I just went on there for 3 or 4 minutes about the challenges that we have moving forward from this. No matter who becomes president, we have a big challenge ahead of us, because this is something that Republicans are no longer going to be able to trust any of these agencies, because they've been used to spy on reporters. They've been used to, and conservative reporters. They've been used to corrupt the entire IC to where they would withhold all of this information that was clearly was so important. If they really believed in Crossfire Hurricane, which they didn't, they knew this was all a crock. This ended Crossfire Hurricane, all the information that we've seen. So look, the media is implicated in this. I mean, we are really on the verge of a Soviet-style Chinese Communist Party apparatus in this country, like we've never been before. And I don't say that lightly. It's really, really serious. If you look at a senior career guy that was one of the impeachment, one of their star witnesses in impeachment, wrote that. I mean, this guy needs to be prosecuted. I mean, all those guys need to be prosecuted that were involved in that. I mean, at a minimum, I think they were lying to Congress. I mean, we're going to have to go back and revisit Jim Jordan, which is our Judiciary Republican head. We're going to have to go back and revisit all this, look through the transcripts, because it looks to me like all of the Democratic star witnesses on impeachment in Ukraine, they've got a lot of credibility problems here, just looking at these emails.
Yeah, no, it really jumps out at you. Last question, because I know you got to go. Do you have a degree of confidence, or what degree of confidence do you have that the Tradecraft report, the referral that you made to the CIA back in 2018, raising concerns about the intelligence community assessment, Russia's intentions, do you think that will see the light of day before we get to Election Day 2020?
Well, look, I mean, this should have been out. First of all, there should have been an immediate investigation at the end of 2018. As soon as we sent that over, there was so much evidence there. But when you really look at what happened there, that was also obstruction. So everybody that was involved in ensuring that the CIA IG, the DNI IG, didn't get their hands on the underlying information, and then all the process we had to go through to get that information out, to brief the appropriate people after they had covered it up for what is now nearly over a year and a half. It's a massive cover-up. It's obstruction of our ongoing investigation that we started in 2018. When we send a referral over there that says there's serious tradecraft problems, we expect that to be investigated. And furthermore, they wouldn't have had to investigate very long to say, boom, wow, there's a whole bunch of other information here. And they should have immediately, the proper response should have been, thank you, Chairman Nunes. Wow, this is really incredible. We need to come in and brief you on this immediately, because it looks like there's a lot of underlying information that you and your committee members didn't see. And we want to be above board. We don't want to be a third world country. We want to have real intelligence agencies in this country that aren't political. We need to come clean. We need to be part of the cleanup crew, not the cover-up crew. And everybody involved at all of these agencies for the last 4 years have been covering up at the highest levels. And it's really disappointing. And at the same time, it's really, really scary.
Well, that's what makes the Durham investigation so important, because it's the ultimate deterrent from this behavior occurring again. If no one gets punished, they walk away. If people get punished, there'll be a second thought to pull off if someone wants to pull these stunts in the future. Congressman, we can't thank you enough for the time you've given us here today, and for all the insights and for all the great work you've done. I think it's pretty fair to say that the record of evidence is that without your work, without your committee's work in 1718, we would have never, ever broken through the ice and got to the bottom of this. So thank you on behalf of the American people for what you did there.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate it.